New York's new ban on cell phones during school hours is here, and it's got a new mascot to help kids get used to the idea. His name, you can see him right here, his name is Frankie Focus, and he's a green monster for some reason that I don't understand. I don't know what the green fur has to do with like a phone or whatever, but anyway, he's come out. He's supposed to help kids understand the way that the ban is going to work, and it's received some criticism. People are saying it's tone deaf, or like that would only really appeal to like kids who probably aren't old enough to even have a cell phone. Like if you're trying to get teens and high schoolers to understand the ban, what's a green monster have to do with it? And I don't know. I assume they had focus groups or whatever, but it seems kind of kidsy. I don't know. Also, Kathy Hochul is receiving some criticism because she's not saying how much they spent on this mascot, and that's usually not a good sign when you don't want to say how much you spent on a thing. So that to me seems like a little bit of a misfire. But, and I think I've been clear about this in the past, I am very much in favor of these school phone bans. That is not universally the position the TDR crew has. I had a very vigorous debate with producer Mike before the show, who made some good points that I will not allow him to repeat live on the air because it undercuts my position. I prefer to maintain a stranglehold on the narrative. But anyway, I think when you're in school, you should be focusing on school. And I think that it's one of, not the only reason, but one of the reasons the grades have gone down recently and why reading comprehension has gone down. And so I think it's a good start. And so New York is jumping into it. A lot of places have, and they're not all blue cities and states that are doing this, by the way. So we can get to some of what the teachers and the kids had to say now that it's live. But Jayar, I'm curious, I actually don't remember your position on this.
Yeah, I don't know if we had before, but I think it's a little ridiculous, gotta be honest. But this is the thing, and maybe I'll repeat some of the points that Mike had considering his Bills won last night in glorious fashion. But so this is the thing, there's safety measures and there's safety parts about this. Maybe some children who aren't driving yet, they need to get home from school. Maybe there's things that happen in schools as we're seeing increased violence in schools and situations where children can call and tell their parents what is that's happening. There was a situation in a school where previous to the cell phone ban, there was someone that showed up with a weapon. When children started texting and talking about it, it helped spread the word where they were able to keep it from escalating and getting worse. It actually saved some folks. And we're concerned, and after that happened, that particular school district decided to then ban it because they didn't want people to think the school was dangerous. Their priorities were based off of, it looks dangerous rather than how do we avoid injuries and harm and deaths from happening. So I feel like sometimes these school districts' approach to this are based off of, again, as we have in the White House, someone wants to present a safety measure or safety that really isn't there, rather than implementing actual policies that will make things safer. A cover-up versus implementation of ways to keep it from happening. I do acknowledge the issues with kids on phones during class and not realize what's happening. That's obvious. That's definitely a thing. I wish there was other ways to avoid that issue. Maybe there's blackouts as far as like abilities to get certain signals, but that would undercut my point about them being able to then communicate if something bad happens. I do think if your kid's gonna fail because he's not he or she is not is too addicted to their phones, I mean, that's a conversation you gotta have at home, bro. Because when I was in school, people started failing because they were too busy scribbling or they're too busy talking or passing notes. It just changes, is the reasons why, and maybe it's easier accessible to screw up with this. I don't know, but I do think it's helpful to have them.
Okay, well, I only have like 30 seconds, so I can't give like a full accounting of this. I think that there are a lot of things that, no, you didn't go on too long. It's just I didn't give us enough time to do the story. There's a lot of things that can distract. I think that some of the concerns about phones is like uniquely, this is like these apps are the product of entire teams of psychologists whose job it is to addict people. And like scribbling doesn't have that. Like it's not like Meta has put $1 billion into how do we hijack the serotonin producing portion of these kids' brains. And it isn't just the kids, a lot of teachers complain that parents are constantly calling and weighing in on the classes and everything. And like, I understand the safety concerns. In terms of like hearing about emergencies at home, schools have always had in the office like a number that can be called and a person can be dispatched. I think each room could have a phone that could be used in the event of a security issue. And I understand those concerns, just like there are emergencies, and then there's also the status quo for every classroom around America, which is lots of kids are not learning and their lives are being held back. And I don't know. I think it is good that in America we have our many different laboratories of democracy where this can be tried out in different cities, it can be tried out in different states, and we can see, does this actually improve grades in New York over this next year, this next 2 years or whatever? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's actually pointless and counterproductive. But I do really worry about the addiction, especially in class. Like the small period where these kids are supposed to be learning and preparing, and I don't know.
It's somewhere in the middle. You got to find a middle ground. It's hard.
Flip phones, I think, is the middle ground. I think that dumb phones should be allowed. We can avoid a lot of problems.